Okay, so because we're rational creatures, we're going to buy into this, and because it's the best way to guarantee peace and stability, we're going to say yes to having an absolute authority. So this could look similar to a democracy, or as Hobbes describes it, a king over all the children of pride, but you can't have that power divided. That's going to be an issue. So the sovereign, uh, students have said, well, we're recognized as a sovereign state, but that's different than what the sovereign state that Hobbes is talking about. Okay, so the next one, the quote from the Leviathan that I want to use here: "For by art is created that great Leviathan, called a commonwealth or a state, in Latin civitas, which is but an artificial man, though of greater stature and strength than the natural, for whose protection and defense it was intended, and in which the sovereignty is an artificial soul, as giving life and motion to the whole body, equity and laws, an artificial reason and will, concord, health, sedition, sickness and civil war, death. Lastly, the pacts and covenants by which the parts of this body politic were at first made, set together and united, resemble that fiat, or let us make man, and pronounced by God of the creation." Okay? So the Leviathan is actually set up, and it's really a four-part argument, and the argument kind of it moves from the account of human nature, and we focus on your basic desires and your passions and those things that motivate your human action. You have this hypothetical, and be very careful about that, because this is a hypothetical state of nature, or a war of all against all. Hobbes is trying to persuade you. So if you're thinking that this is a real scenario, and most people do think of this social contract as a real scenario, that it actually happened, or was real at some time, put that out of your mind. This is either we tacitly agree to this by sticking around and staying in this country, or it's just set up like it's a hypothetical situation that we've agreed to it somehow. Okay, but it's not a real thing that happened. Lasting happiness cannot be acquired without this compact that we make. There's a proposal for a way out, and there's the details of the Commonwealth. We're not going to worry about all of those, but I'm going to kind of tell you how these things work. The starting point for him is that he's a secretary to Francis Bacon. He hates Aristotle. He hates four causes and substance issues, and he agrees with well, Descartes. Well, they're going to agree that in the doctrine of mechanism, that you are a mechanistic being, and we're going to reduce you to simply parts. But mechanistic parts. And philosophy of mind will move in this direction as well. There are two sides. I mean, you're just going to break it down into two sides. You're going to have those people who think you're a material being, those who think that you have something special and unique. Descartes wants to say that there is a mechanism, however, there's a special, unique part of you as well. Hobbes is going to say, pish posh, that doesn't happen. So the differences are in materialism, in empiricism, and in nominalism, and I'll explain those to you, because those come out in your book. Materialism is you in reality consist of matter alone. Democritus, you were going to go back to that. There are no material souls, minds, or forms. And Hobbes will pull from Epicurus in this as well. He believed that the term incorporeal is contradictory. There's no way that that you can talk about this soul, that you have this, you're completely material. Empiricism means that everything that you gain, there's nothing innate, there's nothing a priori. Everything comes from your sense experience. And Bacon is going to say the same thing. There is no knowledge. There's nothing that comes about that's not part of the organ of sense. And this is going to be in contrast to Descartes, who believes that real or certain knowledge is not separate from sense knowledge. And those two, they work together. There's a reason why we have a mind and a body. Unfortunately, Descartes is going to paint himself into a corner. The interesting thing is, if you take a look at any kind of AI research that they're doing right now. I had a really interesting guy who had worked for IBM and was working on AI, and he said that the thing that was so fascinating to them that they found out was that they couldn't just create this mind, they couldn't create a computer without a body, without this experiential apparatus, this sense organ. So it's very interesting. But there is nothing called infinite, and we don't really have a positive conception of God. So nominalism is a metaphysical doctrine, and that denies the existence of universal. There's no common property in nominalism that we all share that makes us human. We mark it and we say, certainly it's like that, but it's not exactly the same. There's nothing that we share in common. One thing that you should note is that Hobbes is a linguist, and Bacon and Hobbes are very much on the same page. When we talk about philosophy and theology, some of that language is meaningless. Remember, this is going to go back directly to Bacon, and we need to start over. Before we were thinking about things and not talking, if we talked about them long enough with Aristotle, we would come to the truth. But that seems to be insufficient for individual moral judgments. And basically, what we should have is we should have this commonwealth that decides good and evil, and with the individual, and in that absolute state, in deciding what's good and evil, it's going to be what's good for everybody, not just the individual but for everybody. And so it's going to take out those ideas that we have of our individual moral projects, and that would eliminate hopefully Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer, and goodness knows there's plenty of them out there. So hopefully we would get rid of those. And I will stop there and move on to the next slide from there.